Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Jamaica, Vermont, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, on location here, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Walk on Wednesday. Walk on Wednesday is a day of the week where we ask somebody with an interesting story to come on for a few minutes and just tell us story. Actually, we're going to read it. Welcome, Lyra Juno. Welcome. Yeah. Can we hear you, Lyra?
Can you hear me?
Did she say anything?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So, Lyra, before you say anything, we're going to read your letter because she wrote us at Wisdom of the Sages. She said, first she mentioned, I think I was doing some online class, and she wrote in the comments, oh, yeah, I lived in Philadelphia. I was like, Philadelphia? I lived in Philadelphia as a monk. And she said she lived there when she was 16 years old. So let's just read her letter and then pick her brain a little bit. Okay. Kaustubha, can you read that, please?
I can read that letter. So one of my, this is an edited letter because it was I edited by not too much. It's a pretty long letter, but then we love the long letters. But she opened up by saying that she had lived in the Philadelphia Temple, which was where Raghunath's band was based. In the early 90s, I suppose, right? Early to mid 90s.
Yeah, like 91, 92, 93, I think, as monks.
So, yeah. And I think just as Raghunath's band wasn't based there, but was still coming there. So there's some crossover. So she writes, one of my sweetest memories of the brahmacharis, the student monks in Philly, was with Raghunath, Paramananda, Mahajay, and the Prema guys. Prema was another Krishna
basically like a bunch of 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds used to come to the temple. They started a band. They got into bhakti. It's interesting because when you're like 15, it's like, especially for guys, it's just like you haven't even gotten through puberty yet. You know what I mean? So having all the,
by 15, but okay, whatever.
Maybe they were younger. I don't know. These guys didn't. They were like small. They were like adorable small children, you know? But anyway, we had our band, our roadies, like 10 brahmacharis maybe, plus an office that was like our brahmachari, a record company, Equal Vision Records we started. Yeah, it was like a whole thing. And so I don't remember Lyra, and I'm mad that I don't remember. But she started explaining her background. So here's.
Well, she also mentioned, I edited out, but like at that time because they were monks, they weren't associating with the girls very much, so that maybe that's also plays into the lack of remembrance.
Sorry about that.
So she says, one of my sweetest memories of the brahmacharis in Philly was with Raghunath, Paramananda, Mahajay, and the Prema guys. I would occasionally bring my little brother Anthony to stay at the temple. He was about 6 years old. So a 15-year-old is walking in there with their 6-year-old brother.
That's like a lawsuit waiting to
totally. You fellas took such good care of him. One weekend, I remember he stayed in the men's ashram. You all dressed him in a dhoti, tilak, and tulsi for the person. So he was all dressed up like a little Hare Krishna. I remember him coming down the stairs with all of you one morning. He was so excited, and so was I. I remember all of you were so proud of him. Thinking about it now really fills my heart with joy. Our home life wasn't the best, so it was a relief to have this time. There were a few string of shows. So these mean shows by Raghunath's band Shelter. There were a few string of shows that I remember all of us having kirtan and giving prasad out at City Gardens. So that's City Gardens has the strongest memory because even Ravindra Swarup Das was there. And so Ravindra Swarup Das was kind of like the senior person in that temple, right? Elderly at that, certainly elder to all the others at that point.
Yeah.
And a real learned pundit.
He was like a PhD in religion. He was sort of like our spiritual father. As a matter of fact, he was the rest of the guys in the band. He was their initiating guru as well.
Right. So brave kids to do that in Trenton, New Jersey, City Gardens, because there was quite a mix of attendees, punks, skinheads, straight edge, and us. Many times it wasn't a symbiotic relationship. I think those Trenton, I hear about those. I never went there because it was kind of past my hardcore time, but it seemed like there was a lot of.
It was a little crazy. It was very, very crazy. First of all, Trenton's like the ghetto of New Jersey, and it was just had a scary element. But when the devotees would show up, it would be like literally like 40 people having kirtan in the pit before the show started, and we'd take a huge pack of incense, with like 40 pieces in it, and light it on fire and start swinging it around in the air.
Okay.
We just fit in with the. You think punks, skinheads, all these, we just fit in as another nutty group of people. Yeah. Another crazy group of people.
There's the Nazis. There was the Hare Krishna. Okay. So she writes, I was going to the temple and Govinda's, which was the restaurant and a little center there on South Street, from 91 to 97. I moved into the temple at 17 years old in June 1994, immediately after graduating from high school. Part of the agreement with my mom to be allowed to move into the temple was that I had to go to the prom and be a normal kid once. She didn't.
That's the first time I ever heard of a mom forcing the kid to go to the prom.
She didn't want me to regret not going on account of God. I stayed for several months, but ultimately left. At that time, so she was only living in the temple for a few months, right, Lyra? Is that correct?
Yeah, I was going for all the weekends for the years before, but I moved in for a little while.
Right.
It's okay. You're off the hook. You're only 15 or 16 years old.
At that time, I think it was a shock to not have all the association of my friends and people my age there. I wrote a long letter to Mother Sharanagati. So that was Ravindra Swarupu's husband. She was also a senior.
No. Sharanagati.
Sharanagati. That's right.
Sharanagati was an elderly lady.
No, it wasn't Sharanagati. It was actually Ravindra Swarup's
wife.
Wife.
Sudamani.
Sudamani. I wrote the wrong thing. Speaking of Shelter.
So it was Sudamani. That's right. So I wrote a long letter to Mother Sudamani about my feelings, and her letter back was so supportive and meaningful. I still have it. Ultimately, I left the movement around 97. I left with a positive feeling, so Krishna always stayed in my heart, and I knew I'd be back someday. I kept all my books, japa beads, bead bags, and tulsi, and even have tilak from then. So today, when I chant rounds, it's on the same beads I did from then. Something very comforting in that. Krishna was always popping up throughout my life, running into devotees in different cities. Krishna kept me mostly grounded and offered guidance in subtle ways. Fast forward to about 2 months ago with the virus, I had so much time to organize since I had no distractions of normal life, and my job is mostly not coming back in 2020. Sorry to hear about that. It was finally time to go through the boxes of stuff from the last 20 years. So what do they call that when you bury time?
Time capsule.
Time capsule. Yeah. I have a lot of books, zines, and I was going through. I had some letters from my friend Ariel, now Adwaita Singha from New Zealand, because we were pen pals for a few years, sharing our teenage angst and struggle maintaining our deep devotion to Krishna. Thanks to technology, I was able to look him up. So once we reconnected, he told me about your podcast. I listened to it as an other, but it's hard to maintain focus with some kind of accountability. Zoom keeps me focused and accountable. Today, you guys talked about a hiccup that leads you to Krishna. A small vision into my life before I found hardcore in Krishna was stealing cars, fighting, hanging out with Trenton, New Jersey drug dealers, and headed down the worst path possible for a 13 and 14-year-old girl. Lyra?
What? Lyra?
Were you
How old were you?
stealing cars as a 13-year-old girl in Trenton, New Jersey?
I got my 15-year-old here. This is a horrible story. You're fired from the show.
Hold it. I don't know. We got to stop this right now. She says, thankfully for that specific hiccup, like Kaustubha was getting stabbed, to force me to recognize, it took that hiccup to force me to recognize that this isn't right for me anymore. I changed high schools and found hardcore in 1991. So when I say Krishna saved my life, he literally did. And for that, I'm forever in gratitude. That's the short version of my journey from then to now. Wisdom of the Sages podcast has helped me remember why I love Krishna and having the association of the devotees, and how it's much needed, because living in this material life without good association is a challenge. You are what you hear. Thank you all for getting up every day and serving us the relatable, realistic, and deeply meaningful words of Krishna. I offer my sincerest gratitude because, again, Krishna is saving my life. Hare Krishna, Lyra.
Oh, that's so sweet. What a great story. And then she sent me on Instagram these incredible photos of her. It's like your little baby. And also this other lady that was on the show, actually she wasn't on Wisdom of the Sage, she was on Super Soul Sacred Sangha, but a Kavali who listens. I said, did you know Erica? And her name was Kavali now, and she lives in India, and she's married to an Indian gentleman. They've been married for many years, and so they were friends and they were roommates. Anyway, I have a question. It's like, what's your feeling about how like Krishna sort of like was always with you? You want to share anything about that?
I mean,
because here you are, like nothing ever happened, like it was yesterday, except you're an adult and we're all old.
It's easier to relate to now because you have life experience to relate a lot of the philosophies to, and so that's helpful. But first, thank you for having me on, because now you're pretty much holding me accountable to stick with it since it's on the internet forever.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Mother Shidamani's also on the phone, wants to hear all about your accountability.
I'd say that. I guess like it was a challenge to go through a lot of the things that I went through, and Krishna really just came into my life at a point where I obviously needed some direction and a big change. And being that young, it was okay. My parents were like, oh, we're okay with her like not doing drugs and not having sex and not doing all those things, since I was not doing very good things before that. So, right. I mean, it's always come up throughout my life. I'd run into devotees like randomly in cities that I would travel to, and if there's anything that you can do to make a devotee on distribution happy, it's to walk up to them and say, Hari Bol Prabhu. And they are like,
that is like, they lose their mind. If
it changes their whole day. It changes their whole day. So, I mean, things like that would happen, and it just, makes you feel good. So
that's beautiful.
I think Raghunath sometimes said, it's like, once you take to this and you really get a taste, you actually like, you hear it and you feel it in your heart, and you kind of connect and you say, this is it. I get it now. That wherever you go, whatever you do, even you may, like and we're going back, because back then it was kind of like, you either lived in a temple and were kind of full on, or if you didn't, you might kind of lose touch with it. And so in a certain way you lost touch with it, but in a certain way, because you had tasted it the way you did, it was still there under the surface and just waiting for you to reopen that time capsule and completely reconnect.
I think a lot of it had, a lot of being Krishna conscious is learning about you're not your body and your spirit soul. So, I mean, obviously with death, it helps you really understand death a lot more, or it's not as hard to deal with, I guess. It's hard to explain. Death is different for everyone, but there was multiple times throughout my life I felt that really helped overcome the challenges of getting through the process of someone that you love dying.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Anyway, we're really happy. Go on.
Yeah, I was just saying, it just really, I just find it so interesting that you just had this box, you know, sitting in a closet, I suppose, or something like that.
You can never get rid of, I feel like I could never part with any of it. Nothing. Like I have pretty much every single thing I've ever accumulated that had to do with
I want to look
Krishna
at
from
it.
him.
I've got nothing. I don't even have the beads from that.
I'll pull it all out. I'll take some pictures.
She said zines because like also like your whole crew there, Raghu, was like producing like, because zines was the thing from the hardcore thing where like kids would produce their own magazines, real kind of do it yourself, you know, printed out in some, you know, on a Xerox machine or something like that. They'd make these magazines, which were like kind of just trying to present Srimad Bhagavatam to a 15-year-old girl into hardcore.
And it worked.
And so it's so cool to think that you had those stashed away and you could open them up again and go back in time and kind of feel those same feelings. And so that, and then reach out to your friend, and then here we are, hooked up again. So great to be hooked up with you again, Leah.
I'm excited to be here.
By the way, there's an entire, I don't know if you're on it or not, but there's an entire Krishna core thread.
Yes.
You are on Discord, on our Patreon Discord communication. So anyway, great to have you. And thanks for joining us live too.
Thank you.
It's beyond accountability. You are officially my little sister, and I will be watching you and making sure you don't screw up or you're in trouble with mom.
All right, good.
Okay.
Or we're going to call mom. That's right.
We're going to call Mother Shidamani, that is. Okay.
That's right.
All right. So, Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, I have a little confession to make too, if I don't mind. Besides camping out and freezing last night because the weather dropped, I woke up. You know, I have a lot of times I have very Krishna conscious dreams. Last night I had this dream, you know, because we're doing a lot with the show, and sometimes we'll get this, like a letter from Lyra or a letter from people saying, thanks so much, everybody, for Wisdom of the Sages, and we really appreciate that, really appreciate this. So I had this dream last night that I was in a random town in America, and I met some devotees, and I was like, hey, it's Raghunath from Wisdom of the Sages. And they're like, oh, hey, what's up, man? But it was like not sort of a welcoming what's up. I was like, well, do you guys listen to the podcast? And they were like, yeah. But they weren't happy the way they said it. And they were like, they're like, yeah, truthfully, a lot of the devotees in the community do not like it. And I was like, why not? I go, because, and he just looked me straight in the eye. He goes, because you're obtuse. You are belligerent. You talk about drinking coffee a lot. You are like a horrible excuse for someone leading the Srimad Bhagavatam class. I was just like, oh man, for everybody, there's probably a lot of, I'm not trying to get a pity party here, but I want to ask for forgiveness if I offend any devotees out there. I just want to say that.
Well, then I may as well
put that out there right now, because
too.
I feel like God can speak through a dream. God can speak through dreams. So I'm taking those seriously. Sometimes I say I had a spiritual experience in a dream, but this can also be a real dream. So if I offend anybody, forgive me. I just want to put that out there. Because sometimes I just talk and I don't even know what I'm saying sometimes. So forgive me.
No.
And also, yeah, thank you. So, and I'm doing it out of a truck today with my daughter here. I'm trying to. That's all I want to say. That's it. Yeah, there she is.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think also with Lyra, you know, it's a good point. You know, she went with fond memories, and Kaustubha can vouch for this. People who don't come back to bhakti is generally people who become bitter at devotees. Devotees, like all humans, will have some type of fault, and if we project them, if we see devotees with faults, Krishna gets hurt by that. And sometimes we get into real digging and fault finding. So Lyra wouldn't be back if she was sort of like had, you know, nasty feelings towards those devotees. Instead of remembering like, hey, these guys are actually precious. Whatever they did or whatever happened or whatever experience with, these guys are actually precious. They gave me something so much. So it's that cherished feeling you have, Lyra, that I think that's why you're here. And for us to protect our own bhakti, we have to be ready to say we're sorry. Or please forgive me. Be quick to ask for forgiveness. It keeps us around. Krishna likes that attitude, and it's just a nice attitude to have.
You know what you're saying, it reminds me, because and it's all tied together, because Lyra mentioned Ravinder Swarup Prabhu.
Yeah.
And he once did like a series of lectures, I think it was called The Cure of Souls, where he took from a book, I'm forgetting the name of the author, but he was like a Christian monk, if I remember correctly. And it dealt with the dark night of the soul, like how it's very common that we all, particularly people that take up a spiritual practice, that you can hit this point where you're at this really difficult time in life, and how in that difficult time it can either be, it kind of becomes like a crux where either you you turn away from the spiritual practice, or you really deal with the issues that you have to deal with, the internal issues that you have to deal with, and with humility, it becomes a springboard to much deeper spiritual life. But he writes, and he wrote there, I remember, that it's common that like there's a psychological mechanism in us, I suppose you could call it, that when it's getting a little too real, or when one has to face their own shortcomings, that rather than do that, one can find fault with someone else, particularly someone who they may feel like is their judge, right? Like they're setting the standard that I need to live up to. Well, let me find a fault with them, and that becomes your personal excuse for not going deeper into this path. And it would be naive to think that we're going to practice spirituality and that everybody that's presenting that path is going to be perfect. That's definitely not going to be the case.
That is the nail on the head, Kaustubha, I think. And if not just even a person, it could be, the entire institution, the entire idea of it. I need to break away and find this more refined Sangha, or this refined group. Happens all the time. And really, it's me not wanting to face that demon or that shadow, or however you want to put it.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we just never really nail our foot down anywhere often, or we just become, in that process, we just harbor resentment towards a person or an institution, and really undermine our spiritual life.
Avoid dealing with the real thing. You're finally there, and then it can be a cop-out. Let me criticize this person. Let me criticize that person. We should take it for granted that we're going to be practicing with people that are also practicing and struggling with their shortcomings and so on.
Yeah. So, and like you were saying yesterday, and I fully agree too, that the people that got us into bhakti too, it's not like they were like these stellar gurus. They were like sort of street kids, gang members, stuff like that. But in our heart of hearts, even at certain times they didn't even like me, you know what I mean? But in our heart of hearts, like, we'll always love them. Why? Because they've been tagged by Krishna. Out of all the people in the universe, they've been tagged to enter into our lives and, practically speaking, save our lives. So we never want to forget the debt that we have to the people that first sort of gave us that little taste. Taste.
Okay.
A little bit of taste of Krishna consciousness. We're always in debt to them. Okay. We should thank them every morning. We should thank them.
All right. Thank you.
So thanks. Thank you.
I thank you, Raghunath. Thank you for giving me that little taste.
Give you a taste.
Go ahead, reach out. Give me a little.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Oh, Kaustubha, I'm going to be rubbing my eyes today because I slept very poorly.
That's okay.
Just the weather.
Hey, you know what I did you know what I did yesterday?
What?
Last night, I had a double date with guess who? With
your wife. I'm hoping your wife's part of the.
She was involved.
Yeah. Okay.
My wife and I had a double date with popular Zoomer and great friend Aditi Ji and her husband.
Oh, the famous Aditi. Aditi's doing teacher training. She was walking in the room, and Mara was walking in the room, and it was like sort of like, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston. They're like, everyone's like, "Is that Aditi? Oh, is that Mara?" Oh my God!
No, well, actually, she was recognized there because Athena also sometimes doing her Zoom was, oh, you're Aditi.
I know, they're like celebrities. Mara can't walk down the streets in Chatham without like an autograph, a circle of people around her.
Anyway, we had a great time and we got into some great conversations and all that. It was nice. So thank you,
Oh,
TTG.
nice.
Yeah.
Kaustubha's night out.
Yeah.
You'd get
And we
crazy.
went to Divya's kitchen, and it's outdoor dining now. So the whole thing was great.
That was predictable. Where else were you going to go, Kaustubha?
That's the only place I go.
It's the only place. Kaustubha's night out. That could be a, what do they call it? A reality show.
Kaustubha's night out. I don't know
Yeah.
how exciting it'll be, but okay.
It's not. You're too Suffolk. You need passion and ignorance to really get the ratings up.
You know, I had
All right, let's
another
get into
thing.
the Bhagavad.
Okay, let's get into it. I can tell you more.
It's okay. We could do this. We can make all of Wednesday just you and me gabbing and bringing on various people.
Well, I'll tell you one more thing. I had this other cool experience yesterday. I was in
Please
Central
share.
Park. I was in Central Park in the morning. It was really
Did you
hot
see
out.
somebody famous?
No, but I was on the north part of the park around the reservoir. I found this elm
Message
tree.
in a bottle.
No, but this elm tree just comes down in such a way where it creates like this kunj, you know, it's like it creates like a room there that's kind of like private. And I said, man, you can just sit here and chant japa. It's like incredible. I was like, I'm going to go back to that place. I'm going to bring a chair. I'm just going to hang out there for hours at a time. It's going to become my new office, you know? It's so beautiful.
Did you bring a chair?
No, I didn't have
gonna
one
bring
there.
a chair
I'm
in the future.
I'm saying I'm going to. Yeah, it's just so nice to get
Okay.
out there. People got to get out in nature, right? And
Yeah,
it's hard for people now, but make a issue of it because it's a game changer. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
we're into it. We
Yeah,
did
look
it
at
so
you.
much that we just moved there. We just moved into nature, and now we're like
We're
on my
suffering.
days off. I'm sleeping. Oh man! I woke up at 2 a.m. Like I put on my motorcycle jacket, a pair of pants, like a winter hat, and socks. I had just this thin little blanket.
Oh, you know, one last thing I just want to mention before we jump into it is we have Danielle Brigham back on Zoom here. It's great. She's been out in Australia, so it's kind of shaken up her schedule. But Danielle was, regular. She goes way back with us. And but Danielle recently lost her father just a couple weeks ago or so. And, so, our prayers go out to Danielle and to her father.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Prayers for Danielle's father.
Okay, let's jump into it.
Whoa, MC Yogi.
Okay.
MC Yogi is on the show. MC Yogi this Sunday.
MC Yogi.
MC Yogi this Sunday.
Taking rap and transforming it into spiritual.
He's a great guy.
prayers.
I'm old friends with MC Yogi. We listen to MC Yogi in the car all the time. I kid you not. My kids know every word to those songs. But anyway, he's our special guest this weekend we're going to have to do it a little later because he's on the West Coast, but 11 a.m. Eastern time.
On Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start with invocation. I fell asleep listening to chapter 18 on my iPhone last night. It was pretty nice.
Chapter 18 of Bhagavatam or Gita?
Yeah, that's what we're doing right now.
Okay, great.
I fell asleep, meaning I played it while on my way to sleep. I wasn't listening to it. I was like, I fell asleep. I was actually on my way to sleep.
Imbibed it through your sleep.
Yeah, I didn't want to make it sound like I was reading it and I just fell asleep. Yeah, I was listening to it and then I just fell asleep. No, I was like, I wanted to fall asleep listening to it.
Right.
That's why I got that dream about being an offender. Okay. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttamasloka bhaktir bhavati naishtiki.
And of course, Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato.
There's I am with you. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. Before we recite by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated in loving service to the personality of Godhead, whose praise of transcendental songs will be established as an irrevocable fact.
Okay.
Om Gyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
All right. So we are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, which describes how Maharaj Parikshit is cursed by the Brahmin boy. We haven't got to the curse yet. But we are picking up. We got up to text 12 yesterday. I'm gonna just read that again quick, and then we'll start with text 13, which is where we are today. In text 12, the sages of Naimisharanya, which is where the Bhagavatam started, they've been performing different kind of rituals, sacrifices, a fire sacrifice, chanting mantras and pouring ghee and grains into the fire and trying to do something auspicious to bring about some good for the future. But they realize we're just getting sooty over here and we don't really feel like we're getting anywhere. But then Sutta Goswami, you came along and you started reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, and we can tell this is like effective. This is really transformational. This is bringing about some real spiritual positivity in life. So thank you for that. So they said in text 12, we have just begun the performance of this fruit of activity of sacrificial fire without any certainty of its result due to the many imperfections in our action. Our bodies have become black with the smoke, but we are factually, but in contrast to that, we are factually pleased. We feel something really positive and satisfying by the nectar of the lotus feet of the personality of God Govinda, which you are distributing. By speaking Bhagavatam, you're connecting us in a really tangible way with the divine. And we're feeling it. They're saying, we're feeling it. So text 13, they continue. And they share this realization now. They're realizing that this time with Sutta Goswami has changed everything. So then comes this verse. They say the value of a moment's association with a devotee of the Lord, with a true bhakti-yogi, cannot even be compared to, and now this is what's going to happen. In Bhagavatam, this happens a lot. It compares bhakti with karma and jnana. So they say it cannot be compared to the attainment of the heavenly planets, which is the goal of the karmis. Let's do our religious ritual to elevate ourselves materially. Or liberation from matter. And that's the business of the jnanis who want to become relieved from the sufferings of this world. So they're saying the bhakti that you're giving us, this highest spiritual revelation, cannot be compared. So, and that comes from even a moment's association with the devotee. That can't be compared to the attainment of the heavenly planets or liberation from matter. And what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. Right? Just throw that in there.
Just shake it up a little.
I think there's something poetic going on too, because they're saying you're giving us this nectar in the previous verse, which is amrita. Right? The word for nectar in Sanskrit is amrit, which literally means, because there's always this idea that there's this nectar of immortality that one can drink. And it's saying that
it's like the fountain of youth.
Like the fountain of youth, but it's saying that hearing Bhagavatam, that's the nectar that grants one freedom from death. And so here by them throwing that in there, you know what, all that material engagement, even if it's coming in religious literature, whatever, that's for people who are meant for death. We're interested in the nectar, that fountain of youth, that amrita that you're supplying. Nice, huh?
That's great. I mean, that because I'm not following along today because I just have my iPhone.
Yeah.
That moment's association was part of the purport of the verse.
That was part of the we haven't read any of the purport. That was the verse. I'll read a little of the purport.
Okay.
Prabhupada says, devotional service is eternal. It has no end because it is spiritual. Therefore, since the assets of a pure devotee are completely different from material assets, there's no comparison between the two. What the devotee is giving is nectar. It's eternal. It's deathless. Whereas anything material can't even be compared. Sutta Goswami was a pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his association with the rishis, those sages, and Naimisharanya is unique. In the material world, association with gross materialists is veritably condemned. The materialist is called Yoshit Sangi, or one who is much attracted to material engagement. Such attachment is conditioned because it drives away the benedictions of life and prosperity.
Yoshit Sangi.
Yeah. Sounds like some bad association. Bad company. Some bad company there. And just the opposite is Bhagavata Sangi, or one who is always in the association with the Lord's name, form, qualities, etc. Such association is always desirable. It is worshipable. It is praiseworthy, and one may accept it. How? This is key here, right? In other words, it's saying that if you can get good association of people that are connected with Bhagavatam, with Bhakti, that connected to God, really in a really sincere way, that is, it's desirable, it's worshipful, it's praiseworthy, and one may accept it as the highest goal in life. Let that be our goal, right? That I want the association of people that are really connected with this, and that's my goal. And if I have to adjust myself to some degree to get that, I'll do it. If I have to spend my time in a different way, I'll do it. If I have to behave a little different, maybe I'll do it. You know, if I have to eat a little humble pie sometimes, I'll do it, because it's the highest goal in life.
Prabhuji, it's sometimes how you see, sometimes if we're not fit, and all of a sudden you meet somebody who's very fit, you're like, oh man. Or you meet somebody who's a great musician and you're sort of a pretty good musician. You're like, oh man. What happens is when you meet someone who's like a virtuoso at what they're doing, it makes you be like, what am I doing? Why can't I be like that? I can do that. They did it. It's doable. In the same sense, it's like when you meet someone of a high spiritual caliber, it's like, wow, I gotta up my game. I gotta fine tune this. I gotta polish what I've got. Or sometimes you meet, if you've never met a spiritual person and you don't even really have a taste for spiritual life, and you meet someone who's very saintly, it makes you realize, wow, the world is completely different with different goals. This is what I want to be. It's almost like when your phone gets like rerouting, and it's just like the pinwheel just spins around. You're like, wow, I'm completely lost. I've been going the wrong way, and now it's taking me in a whole new direction. So there's such a power of this moment's association with a great soul. It can just really change the whole trajectory of your life. And I think it probably is true for a lot of us here when we first run into a great soul or hear the message of the Bhagavatam. We start to rethink who we are and what are we doing, and perhaps changing the priorities in our life.
Yeah. So as it says, one may accept it as the highest goal in life, right? Let me change my priorities here.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Text 14. These sages and Naimisharanya are continuing. The personality of God, Lord Krishna, Govinda, is the exclusive shelter of all great living beings. And his transcendental attributes cannot even be measured by such masters of mystic powers as Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma. Can anyone who is expert in relishing nectar ever be fully satiated by hearing topics about him?
I'm a nectar relisher myself.
Yeah. Nectar collector?
And I'm a nectar collector.
A mellow relisher? So it's by saying this, it's saying that the qualities of Krishna are unlimited. Even Brahma or Shiva can't find an end to them. And how could one be satiated? Okay, I've had enough of that. Now I'm moving on. No, it's like the more you get, the more you want. And they're experiencing it now, right? We're doing these karmic kind of sacrifices to try to bring about some material good. This is a very different thing now. We're getting sooty and we weren't feeling good. It wasn't satisfying us.
Yeah.
And now we're hearing you speak Bhagavatam. It's directly connecting us. It's relishable. We want more and more of it. Okay. Yeah. Text 15. O Sutta Goswami, you are a learned and pure devotee of the Lord, because the personality of Godhead is your chief object of service. And that's the evidence right there, that you've made it the priority, right? That connecting with that divine source has become your chief object of service. You're not serving other things in other ways. That's your chief object of service. Therefore, please describe to us the pastimes of the Lord, which are above all material conception, for we are anxious to receive such messages. Right? So here we have two things mentioned. We have a qualification of the speaker and a qualification of the hearer. That they're saying, Shukadeva Goswami, I'm sorry, not Shukadeva at this point, Sutta Goswami, you're Bhagavat Pradhano. You've made Bhagavan, the Pradhana means your life, you've made that the topmost priority in your life, that divine objective. Therefore, you're qualified to speak. You're not just some flake that's coming along with your latest spiritual theory or trying to become like some big kind of like personal self-help guru. Or, you can say guru in such a disdainful way if you want to. It's some kind of guru. No, you've embodied the essence. You've made Bhagavan your very life, and we are shushrushyatam. This is one of those really hard ones, right? It's kind of like you say, and you sound like you're Scooby-Doo or something like that. Shushrushyatam. Shushrushyatam.
On a side note, the Scooby-Doo theme song was written.
Okay.
This
sounds like a real side note.
This is a side note. It was written by a devotee's father.
Really?
Amala Bhakta, who's now a sannyasi. His father wrote the Scooby-Doo theme song. Is that unbelievable?
There you go.
There's little things you learn every day.
Little connection. Okay.
We're just like 2 steps away from Scooby-Doo. It's like, what's that thing? Separated by, what is that?
Stages of separation or something like that?
Degrees? Like 6
degrees.
6 degrees of 2 degrees of separation from the Scooby-Doo theme song.
Wow.
Okay, go on.
And from God, you're saying. Scooby-Doo is 2 degrees from God, from Bhagavan.
Yes, that's what I meant to say.
Okay, so, but again, it's saying that the speaker was Bhagavat, so in other words, we're practicing bhakti. We want the practice to be effective. It's a practice of yoga, but it has to be done right. Just like if you want to grow a plant, which sometimes the practice of bhakti is compared to, right? Like the creeper of bhakti. You need a good seed and you need fertile soil, right? And then you need the right conditions. If it's not all, someone say, well, I tried that, but it didn't work. Well, did you do everything right? I tried gardening, but gardening doesn't work. No, gardening doesn't work. Gardening works, but you need the right seeds, you need the right soil, you need the right sun, you need the right water. You need to, if you're going to approach it seriously, you have to make sure all the conditions are correct. And so, if one wants to practice bhakti, you don't hear from just the latest guy that's got the right look and, has got the right Instagram followers and it's got, the right, whatever,
You're talking about me.
No, I wasn't talking about you.
The guy's got the Instagram followers.
Some kind of guru.
The crazy neckerchief he's wearing.
Well, that's your new style. You're just styling that new neckerchief. That's cool. Okay. But my point is we really need to learn the qualifications. And one of the qualifications they're saying is, Sutta Goswami, you're Bhagavat Pradhano. You've given your life to Bhagavat, to Bhagavan. it's not just some side thing or some business for you. It's your very heart and soul. We want to hear it from you. And what are they? They're, again, I'll try to say it in my Scooby-Doo way. Shru shatam.
Shushushatam.
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 And that
Well, you know,
means that,
Kaustubha.
yeah.
Oh, come. Hold
Well,
on.
that means that they are eager. They're anxious. They really want. They've made it their priority, right? They're not. It's not just something that they're doing, you know, like on the side, or something they're doing to look cool or whatever. No, they're anxious to receive this. So they're the fertile soil, and Sutta Goswami is that gardener who's got the seed that he can plant it right in there, and with the right conditions, it'll grow.
I think it's safe to say that a lot of us perhaps have heard the message of the Bhagavatam, which is always ripe, right? Which is always sweet and is always potent and is always, when we were not ripe to hear it, right? If we were to hear it, I know for years I would hear it and we'd always be like, yeah, maybe, yeah, whatever. Yeah, it was like everything discounted, maybe something there. But then there comes a time where we are actually, fertile? Is that
Fertile. Okay,
fertile?
yeah.
Fertile.
You got a little fertilizer.
Fertile. I got
Life gives you the fertilizer, right?
Yeah, life gives you the fertile. Look at Lyra Juno. She just got fertile. I didn't read it like that, but you know what I mean. He's got fertile. Like, it's our life experience. Our life there is just saying no. She's saying no.
No, don't go there.
No, the dream, Raghunath, the dream. Listen to the dream. But the idea is life gets us to this place where, like, oh my God, yes, the Bhagavatam. And sometimes we get it 10 years in, 20 years in, 30 years in, sometimes a year, you know, like I think Kaustubha, you mentioned, like when you heard it, you know, you were like, yeah, yes, I'm ready for this. When I heard it, took me a few years just to hear and hear and hear and be like, nah. And then you get to this point, I'm completely ripe to hear.
Right.
Because great souls all the time, and we've seen it happen. We see like Raghunath Swami speaking to somebody and the person just will not get it because their head is not there. No matter how eloquent the speaker is or powerful the speaker is or deep and connected, they won't hear it.
Right.
Their head's somewhere else, or it's just facing the wrong direction.
All right.
Oh, you're right.
All right. So text 16. The text 16, you know, it's a text that we could get into for a long time. So let's get it started. Maybe we'll pick up with it again tomorrow, but let's see. Ready, Raghu?
I'm ready. I'm trying to get Sachi to queue up. No, you got to queue up Jai Shri Krishna.
My daughter's my DJ.
Not
It's going to be me, Mara, and Sachi battle to see who the best DJ is.
Okay. Here we go. Text 16. Oh, Sutta Goswami. And they're just begging him now, right? See how eager they're just begging. Give us Bhagavatam. Give us Bhagavatam. Oh, Sutta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. Those topics were vibrated by the son of Vyasa, Srila Shukadev, right? So they're saying, you know, hey, we're building up we're building up towards the end of this canto. We've been on it since the beginning of the year, right? We're 7 months in. And those sages were saying, okay, tell us the Bhagavatam. You tell us that whole conversation that you overheard where Maharaj Parikshit was asking questions to Shukadev Goswami. And that Shukadev Goswami, what a character he was. We need to hear more about him. We need to hear all that he discussed.
Right.
So now let's take a look at the commentary to this verse. There is some controversy. I think they say it like that in England. Do we have English people here? Is that how they pronounce it? Controversy?
Aluminium. It's aluminium.
Aluminium. There's some controversy amongst the students on the path of liberation Okay, so what Prabhupada is speaking here is that he's saying amongst the Vedantins, amongst the people that study Vedanta, there are two schools of thought. There's some controversy, there's some disagreement, there's some two different approaches. There's some controversy amongst the students on the path of liberation. Such transcendental students are known as impersonalists and devotees of the Lord. You have two different camps here, right? The impersonalists, Vedantins, sometimes called Advaita Vedantins, sometimes called Mayavadis, and the devotees of the Lord, sometimes called Bhaktas, sometimes called Vaishnavas, sometimes called Bhakti Vedantas, different things like that called. The devotee of the Lord worships the transcendental form of the Lord. Sometimes that form appears how, Raghunath? Oh, man. You're out of it. I thought you were just going to jump right on and say, sweet baby Krishna.
Oh, I was wondering where you were going with this.
You had a tough night last night.
It was a tough night, man. On my cot.
Okay, so the devotees of the Lord, they worship the transcendental form of the Lord. They see that form. This isn't the purport. This is just me speaking up. But they see that form as eternal, spiritual form. It's not ordinary. It's not material. Whereas the impersonalist meditates upon the glaring effulgence or the bodily rays of the Lord, known as the Brahmajyoti. So one camp is seeing the person as the focus of meditation, the ultimate reality. And another one is seeing divine light, right? The oneness as the ultimate goal. And what Prabhupada mentioned here is that even that light, that oneness, is the effulgence of the form. Okay. Here in this verse, it is said that Maharaj Parikshit attained the lotus feet of the Lord by instructions and knowledge delivered by who? By the son of Vyasadeva, Srila Shukadeva Goswami. Okay, this Shukadeva Goswami is going to become very important from here on out. Shukadeva Goswami was also an impersonalist in the beginning, as he himself admitted in Bhagavatam 219. So we could jump over to Bhagavatam 219. And
that'd be good.
You want to do that?
Well, we got 3 minutes left, though.
Okay, so maybe let's do this. Let's just frame tomorrow's talk, right? We're going to get into this subject and we're going to spend some time with it. That there are these two different ways of looking at things. But what we're going to find is that you get this person like Shukadeva Goswami. He wasn't just a person that was into that impersonalistic thought. He was like the most deeply absorbed in it. He was a perfect example of someone that was super realized on that level, but even he took to connecting with the divine form. And that's a clue. That's a big clue right there. Something to think about. All right. And we'll pick up with that tomorrow.
All right, cool.
Hit it.
All right. Well, thanks everybody joining us for Walk on Wednesday, including Lyra Juno.
Yeah.
Lyra, good you're still here after all these years. Welcome back. And Aditi, thanks for double dating Kaustubha last night with your husband and his wife.
Thank you, Aditi.
That was very nice. And thanks for the moments association with great souls. I'm trying to update the whole show here, everything we went through here. And thanks for Scooby-Doo. I wonder what the royalties were. We're just going to get millions from the royalties of Scooby-Doo, man.
Still paying.
Anyway, thanks to everybody for joining us. Grateful. Sorry I kept that. If you were listening, watching Zoom, sorry I'm repeatedly yawning and rubbing my face today. Again, apologies to anybody ever offended. I'm realizing I got to be a little careful. And if you want to join us on Zoom, like Lyra mentioned, there's a lot of accountability because we check up on you. We make a list, we check it twice. We're going to find out who's naughty and nice. We're just going to do that, okay? And you can join us at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Remember, this Sunday, we're going to have a special interview with MC Yogi. Check out his music ahead of time if you haven't on Spotify. Great guy, too. Also, questions and answer day is coming up on Saturday. That's 8 o'clock live. And again, if you want to join us or have a question for us, it's normal that you get questions on your spiritual path. You just write Mara, Wisdom of the Sages 108 at gmail.com. Mara makes a whole list, divvies them out to me and Kaustubha, and then we read them on the show. It's time to lip sync.